Hi, this presentation is titled Seeing It for Themselves, Critiquing Visual Media to Foster Student Literacy. I'm going to first talk about the importance of literacy generally and the importance of visual media for literacy. Marginalized groups have historically become visible, demanded political recognition, and improved their economic rights by acquiring literacy in the dominant medium. Visual media has sort of shifted that a little bit. Using media can improve literacy through new alternative literacy spaces, like spaces where you can also learn literacy other than traditional classrooms. These alternative literacy spaces potentially foster different forms of literacy through media, and they could take many forms, such as if you wanted to start a curricular program involving visual media. And this is suggested by the research I'll be talking about here. The focus of this presentation is on visual media for teaching immigration. And ideally, you will get to know from this presentation positives and negatives when using visual media in classrooms to foster literacy development. And the ultimate goal of all of this presentation is to have research, to discuss research that will ideally allow educators like yourselves to implement visual media in an informed manner to foster improved literacy levels. So again, people are using visual media. It's a new form of way to foster media, so foster literacy, so why not look into it? In terms of this research, it's again specifically using visual media for teaching immigration. I worked in a K-6 teacher with a teacher who taught immigration with visual media. The visual media in that class was shared to elicit emotional student response regarding immigration. So by showing the media, it would ideally foster some kind of emotional response. The research methods that were done, I played two roles concurrently. I engaged in a participant observation of the classroom, in this K-6 classroom, and I also supported in-class instruction, kind of like a teaching assistant in a class. After screening the media and sharing it with students, I collected written student responses in reaction to a screening of a personally produced ethnographic film. It's titled Home. The film Home illustrated the ongoing impact of immigration through the story of my immigrant uncle who has lived in North America for many decades. So basically, he lived in North America for decades and never returned to his home. The ethnographic film explored why he chose not to return home. The theoretical framework for this presentation is narrative inquiry, which is really useful. For those of you who don't know about it, narrative inquiry is a collaboration between researcher and participants over time in a place or a series of places and in social interaction with milieus. So again, as I've set up before, there's a collaboration between the researcher and the participants, including myself and my host teacher and their students that she taught. This occurred within a classroom environment inhabited by the teacher, the students, and myself as a researcher who participated in this research examining visual media production to teach immigration. So the media production would be them creating their own drawings of and photographs of artifacts from home to help them teach immigration. In terms of narrative inquiry, there's this idea of family stories, and they can help contribute to research. The study featured both an ethnographic film that I produced and associated photographs that provided glimpses into my family dynamic. Two, they ideally elicited similar content and media production from the participants as per a previous study that I did with them. So by me sharing this media production, they participated in similar types of media production, less like electronic, more analog. Substance of the content that was collected from the participants of this for the study dealt with their families, and again they would use drawing to help do that. The researcher Stone summed up the importance of narratives based on family. A quote, family stories seem to persist in importance, even when people think of themselves individually without regard to their family role. The particular human chain we are part of is central to our individual identity. So again, by using family stories of both myself, the host teacher, and the students, by tapping into those things that help them get a glimpse into not only immigration, but also their individual identity. So it kind of hopefully dealt with multiple things. The data sources that were included in the study included personally produced ethnographic film called Home, two types of artifacts that that students would create. They would be documents that they would read and make, and drawings that they would see and make, focusing on immigration. I also conducted semi-structured interviews with students, and I created a couple of case studies on student emotional response for a couple of different students who are particularly notable. Sort of going back to some of the concepts that sort of inform this study. There's been a change of the dominant medium, and it's a bit ambiguous. Mass media and the internet have changed the dominant medium from reading and writing printed text to the primacy of images, and arguably as well, past echo in '86, also online text and online images. Due to the images' ambiguity, audiences take an active role in interpreting and understanding media stories with differing meanings. And hence, what I think Fisher-Keller is trying to get across here is the idea that images themselves are ambiguous, and so the audiences, the students in this particular situation, take an active role in trying to interpret what those images are. Images offer an entry point to the complex ambiguities inherent to subject matter such as immigration. And for any of you that have immigrated or know much about immigration, it's a very complex social phenomenon. In terms of the application of this research, students were given space to interpret the visual media that I shared and craft some of this media into narratives involving immigration for exploring emotional response to visual media. Visual media has been used both positively and negatively. I'll talk first about the positives in film, video games, and biographies. As stated here, many uses of analog and digital visual media in classrooms. For example, scripts and storyboards. Media can improve literacy through creation of scripts, storyboards with dialogue. For example, G and Hall and Katz focus on ways to gain access to different types of literacy through no alternative literacy spaces. In video games, James Paul G used video games in developing literacy skills. And in digital storytelling, going back to Hall and Katz, they researched storytelling and video renditions of poetry and rap, storytelling scripts, and digital bios. So again, you can use analog and digital visual media in classrooms in multiple ways. However, unfortunately, there are some negatives, such as condemning viewpoints. In terms of David Buckingham's work, he analyzed student media and third-party produced media can evolve into kind of political competition. More specifically, students tend to condemn negative viewpoints as loudly as possible. The louder the condemnation, the more legitimate and contestable one's political position of these students. As a result of this, if you want to accept what Buckingham is saying as true, or at least theoretically true, if you accept that, then more textured and in-depth explorations of immigration may be precluded in this negative extremist discursive space. So that's something you're going to want to address. Also, there's the problem of the digital divide, which I'm sure many of you have heard of. Although open learning systems have been developing and making promises to foster more inclusive opportunities for our marginalized segments of society, problems like a digital divide threaten its level of comprehensiveness. In short, not everyone has the same access to digital technology and the internet. As a result, promising media and technology initiatives have limited utility when the digital divide prohibits widespread dissemination across populations that desperately need them. As a result, as you'd imagine, there becomes class and racial and other components that are involved. The income one it's pretty understandable. If you're poor, it's harder to be able to own high quality devices, tablets, computers, and have high quality Wi-Fi. Another issue is racism in the media, and it's another negative. Cohen favors the reading of racial images in complex, unpredictable, and unstable ways. He contrasts that with traditional conceived notions of racial images having fixed meanings not easily dispelled through education. Diverse media dealing with immigration and racism is not complicated to choose from. As a result, the implications are also difficult to predict. Again, if racial images are complex, unpredictable, and unstable in the ways that they're read, that can lead to both some really fantastic outcomes that can be really interesting and enlightening for students, but also potentially very poor outcomes. In conclusion, mass media and the internet have changed the dominant medium from reading and writing printed text to the primacy of images and more online text and digital text. Studying analog and digital visual media in classrooms is important. Hopefully you've come to that realization from this, otherwise you didn't like my presentation. Next, using visual media in classrooms could foster positive literacy outcomes and be a welcome benefit to educational research, and hopefully you will explore media in classrooms. Despite its potential, alternative literacy spaces may not provide a comprehensive strategy to assist with improving literacy. And finally, discussing the positives and negatives of using visual media in the classroom, as I've done here, is helpful in promoting positive educational outcomes. That was Seeing It for Themselves, Critiquing Visual Media to Foster Student Literacy. Thanks for watching. Take care.